Hello again, I'm Stephen Chudy. Welcome to Topic 5 of the Envisioning PBLL MOOC. Today's topic is Need to Knows, a key guide in project development. By the end of today's session, you'll be able to answer these questions. What are need to knows? How do need to knows frame a project? How are need to knows identified or constructed? What are some approaches to managing need to knows? What are the life stages of need to knows throughout a project? So let's talk first about defining need to knows. Once learners have experienced the entry event in a project and are ready to respond to the challenging question or problem, they start with the question, what do we need to know in order to create the highest quality public product possible? Through dialogue with the instructor, they generate questions that will guide their inquiry during the project. These questions are the need to knows, or NTKs. So what are need to knows for? Let's talk about how NTKs frame a project. In essence, need to knows are a kind of curriculum guide. They are not just about content, but also about process. What phases will our project need to have? How will we work in teams? How long can we spend in our research phase? What is our protocol for critique and revision? Most of the time, each need to know can be associated with a curricular standard, including 21st century skills. It's important to recognize that there is no single correct way to generate and manage need to knows. In the case of project-based language learning, generating need to knows means thinking about what kinds of communication will take place during a project in the three communicative modes. Interpretive, for processing authentic texts or other information sources such as videos. Interpersonal, for working with community partners who are informants or project partners, and to the extent possible, using the target language in the classroom to engage in teamwork, discussion, critique and revision, and so forth. And finally, presentational, for crafting the message in a final product, such as a report or a poster presentation. One thing to be aware of is that need to knows are likely to take you as a teacher a lot farther in thinking about how and for what the language of study is used in your classroom. Language textbooks do not tend to focus on investigating problems by searching for informational resources or interviewing community partners, and they may offer even less when it comes to using the target language to work in teams, assign responsibilities, manage project deadlines, and so forth. Learners may find these challenging at first, but if you have been through the need to know generation process, the students will understand why you want them to work on these skills. Also, let's note that learners working on a project might not be able to address all the need to knows they generated at the beginning. During one project, they might choose one teamwork skill to learn more about in the target language and leave others for a later project. So how does it all begin? Need to knows are generated through dialogue between learners and teachers. Going into the need to know generation process, the teacher anticipates a list of their own need to knows and holds them back, so that during the rest of the generating process, the teacher can gently prompt the learners. Have you thought about? Think about your own project idea. It is likely that you had to think through what skills your students would need in order to carry out the project. Have you begun to generate a list of need to knows for your project? Let's walk through some of the life stages of need to knows from that beginning point after the entry event when the students understand and have accepted the challenge of the project. The teacher might say, "You're wondering about this project. You have questions about what you will need to learn to do this project. Right now, let's get your questions down on sticky notes and then categorize them." So in this stage 1 in generating the need to knows, learners first simply generate questions. This might be by means of a silent chalk storm, which is sometimes called a chalk talk, in the context of language teaching. You might opt for the sticky notes method, which is simple and popular, or you might conduct a discussion with one or more learners clerking for the class. They type the need-to-knows that come out of the discussion into a shared document. One reason sticky notes are a popular medium is that they can be manipulated, making it easy to sort them into categories. For example, a large class sitting around 5 large tables might divide the big pile of sticky note need-to-knows into 5 random stacks, and then each table might be assigned to sort their table's stack into 2 piles. The first pile, pile A, might deal with process and logistics. Who is setting up the event? How will we get the material resources we need? What is our timeline? And pile B might deal with knowledge and skills. How do you politely conduct an interview? What are some strategies for reading newspaper articles? What verb tenses are needed to tell a story? What vocabulary do we need to give constructive feedback? After the initial stage of generating and rough sorting the need-to-knows, the teacher can help further structure inquiry by using higher-level questions for further sorting. At this point, the different pieces of work that will be required for the project begin to come into view. In this process, the teacher will provide additional big questions for further sorting of each pile of questions. These big questions become baskets or containers for the already generated need-to-knows to be placed under, and they also help the learners see how they are going to chip away at this large project piece by piece. At this point, it might be appropriate for the teacher to create physical zones, such as areas on a whiteboard, corresponding to these big questions, and to invite the students to post each need-to-know in the category they feel matches it best. Here are some examples of these categorizing questions that allow further sorting of need-to-knows so that they are not just one big scary mass. What language are we going to need to learn in order to complete the final task or make the product? What are we going to need to know about our audience? What are we going to need to know about how to work in groups? And the process is open-ended. Try to capture all the types of learning you anticipate. Please note that the teacher may also propose a category for need-to-knows that students think are too ambitious or do not really belong to this project, and those need-to-knows might be discarded this time around. Conversely, new need-to-knows will very likely arise during this process, and those should certainly be brought in. They may be even more valuable than the initial list. The next stage involves settling on and then posting, for the benefit of the class, the official list of need-to-knows for the project. Again, a physically portable format for each need-to-know can be useful, so that need-to-knows can be physically manipulated as the project unfolds to show what stage the learners are at with regard to that particular need-to-know. The need-to-knows don't go away. They are going to last as long as the project does, and the status of a project's need-to-knows is a strong indicator of the progress of the project overall. So the teacher should bring students' attention back to the list of need-to-knows very often. Strive to raise student awareness of the need-to-knows to the point that a student always knows which NTK they are currently working on. Manage the project with groups and calendars and so forth so that the list of need-to-knows will be steadily worked through and fulfilled. In classrooms, the project wall is often used to track need-to-knows and project management. Project walls come in many different styles and formats. A project wall may incorporate all the project's need-to-knows, often with an indicator of each need-to-know's individual status. For example, here we see a project wall with the categories proposed, active, clear, and done. The final stage in the life of a need-to-know is being moved to the done category, and this often means that that skill has been assessed. At the same time, projects are messy and unanticipated need-to-knows might arise and have to be added. A need-to-know that everyone thought was mastered or taken care of might have to be recategorized as not done. So the list of need-to-knows is always alive, as each item changes in status during the learning process. Here are further informational resources on need-to-knows and project walls from the official blog at PBL Works. You will see links to these in the MOOC also. The first useful blog entry is how we use need-to-know questions to guide sustained inquiry. And you might also like this short read, Using a Project Wall to Support Gold Standard Project-Based Teaching. Thank you for your attention.